When us Star Wars fans talk about the most powerful Jedi of all time, the conversation often gets muddled with opinions. Is it about lightsaber skill, force ability, wisdom, influence? Truth is, it's all of it. And throughout galactic history, there have only been a few Jedi who stood so far above the rest that their names became legend. Today we're going over the 10 most powerful Jedi in Star Wars canon. Number 10, Cal Kestis. Only a young Padawan when Order 66 was executed, Cal Kestis spent many years in hiding. However, when he took up the mantle of being a Jedi once more, Kestis proved to be an incredibly skilled warrior. Former Jedi Master Seer Junda took that power and sharpened him into a weapon, ensuring that Cal was ready to face whatever a dangerous galaxy had to throw at him. His razor-sharp wits and ability to pick things up quickly helped him remaster the use of the Force and his lightsaber. But it was his incredibly rare ability called psychometry which allowed him to sense past events in objects. That made him such a powerful Jedi. It was a dangerous skill that very few Jedi possessed. Cal was able to fend off and kill several lethal Inquisitor attacks, and even survived an encounter with Darth Vader, something very few Jedi of his era can claim. If you've completed Jedi Survivor, you'll also know of some additional abilities Cal discovers by the end of the game. And with a third Jedi game in development at Respawn, we haven't even seen peak Cal Kestis just yet. Number 9, Kit Fisto. The Nautolan Jedi Master was an exceptional duelist and had mastered Form 1 of lightsaber combat, proficient enough to stand toe-to-toe with General Grievous in single combat. Kit was as capable in aquatic environments as he was on dry land, which gave him an advantage in many battles throughout the Clone Wars. He was one of Mace Windu's first choices of Jedi to accompany him to arrest the Chancellor after General Grievous had been killed, and Kit stood alongside him when it was revealed Palpatine was in fact the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. Kit fought skillfully and briefly matched Darth Sidious in combat before being cut down. At least he fared better than the likes of Agent Kolar and Saesee Tiin, but even in death, Kit Fisto's optimism, resilience, and strategic mind solidified his place as one of the most powerful Jedi of his time and an inspiration to those Jedi who came after him. Number 8, Qui-Gon Jinn. What made Qui-Gon Jinn so special was his ability to see and accept a wider worldview, often saying and doing things that would rub the Jedi Council the wrong way. Still, Qui-Gon sensed Anakin Skywalker's raw potential, and he chose to take the boy on as his own unofficial apprentice, much to the frustration and annoyance of the other members of his order. Qui-Gon may not have been the most impressive duelist, slain in combat by Darth Maul when he was past his prime, but the thing that made Qui-Gon Jinn so powerful was that he was the very first Jedi to discover the ability to retain consciousness after death, making him the pioneer of the Force Ghost ability. After his death in The Phantom Menace, Force priestesses took Qui-Gon's spirit and taught him the secrets of immortality. But the process was not an easy one, and for a long time he could only manifest as a voice rather than a full Force Ghost. Still, he reached out to both Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda in order to pass on his knowledge, and in time, Qui-Gon learned how to fully manifest his body in ghost form. Qui-Gon's discovery reshaped Jedi history, allowing future masters to return as Force ghosts. His groundbreaking connection with the Force ensured that the wisdom of great Jedi could endure beyond death, something that the Sith could only dream of being able to do. Number 7, Plo Koon. While he may not have had the flashiest lightsaber or the loudest presence in the Jedi Order, Plo Koon was one of the most powerful Jedi of his era. A Caldor from the planet Doran, Plo Koon was a Jedi Master who combined quiet wisdom with devastating combat ability. He served on the Jedi High Council during the Clone Wars and was widely respected for his calm demeanor and strong moral compass, but what set him apart wasn't just his leadership, it was his raw connection to the Force. Plo Koon was a master of both lightsaber combat and rare Force abilities. He was one of the few Jedi trained in electric judgment, a non-lethal variant of Force Lightning that allowed him to incapacitate opponents without giving in to anger or hatred. That alone speaks volumes about his control and balance. He was also a skilled pilot, tactician, and field commander, leading the renowned 104th Battalion, or Wolfpack, with respect and precision. He discovered and mentored Ahsoka Tano, and his death during Order 66 hit harder than most. Luckily for his clone troopers, he was in a starfighter when the command came down. Otherwise, things may have gone very differently. Number 6, Ahsoka Tano. Some might consider it controversial to have Ahsoka this high, but honestly they shouldn't. As a Padawan, she went toe-to-toe with General Grievous and Asajj Ventress, both of whom were extremely dangerous and competent fighters that had multiple Jedi kills under their belts. During the events on Mortis, Ahsoka was killed by the godlike male Force wielder known as the Sun. In order to bring her back to life, a female Force god known as the Daughter transferred her own life essence into Ahsoka, leaving the Force itself unbalanced. Still, Ahsoka was left with the powers of a Mortis god within her, something that no other Jedi could lay claim to. Ahsoka followed her own path, leaving the Jedi Order after having been accused of a crime she didn't commit. For a while she hid, suppressing her instincts to do good and use the Force as she had been trained to do for so many years. Eventually though, she joined the fight again, not becoming a Jedi, but aligning herself with the light. And while the two things might be easily confused, Ahsoka was still the first to admit that she was no Jedi. Later on in life, she also went up against two fully fledged Sith Lords and lived to tell the tale. Darth Maul on Mandalore and Darth Vader on Malachor. Number 5, Obi-Wan Kenobi. An absolutely by-the-books Jedi. A Jedi's Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi embodied the principles of the Jedi Order more completely than most, becoming a nearly unmatched warrior, tactician, and spiritual leader. Kenobi's mastery of the lightsaber combat form Surisu made him one of the greatest defensive duelists of all time. He was able to outlast and defeat superior offensive fighters, including Darth Maul, General Grievous, and even Anakin Skywalker. His patience and endurance in battle made him nearly invulnerable, turning enemy aggression into their own downfall while remaining calm himself. Obi-Wan learned the Jedi ways from the very best, learning wisdom from Master Yoda and open-mindedness from Qui-Gon. He gained a lot of experience and knowledge by working closely with the Jedi Council, all while training his own unruly and headstrong apprentice in Anakin. What's even more impressive is that Obi-Wan had a lower midichlorian count than many of his peers, yet he still reached such a legendary status. As the saying goes, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Beyond combat, Obi-Wan possessed incredible wisdom and clarity. He survived Order 66, and even in exile on Tatooine, he remained a beacon of the Jedi way, watching over Luke Skywalker and preparing the next generation for the fight against the Sith. And of course, he mastered the ability to maintain his consciousness through the Force after death, something which he learned through training with Qui-Gon. Sure, Obi-Wan might not have been the most powerful Jedi in terms of raw strength, but it was his unwavering dedication to the Order and his ability to uphold the light in the darkest of times that gave him his true power. Number 4, Mace Windu. What gave Mace Windu such massive strength was his ability to walk the line between light and dark without falling. His greatest achievement in combat was the development and mastery of the Pod, an advanced and dangerous form of lightsaber combat that channeled an opponent's dark side energy back at them. This style allowed him to fight Sith Lords on equal footing, something few Jedi could accomplish. His mastery of the Pod made him one of the deadliest duelists in history, as evidenced in his battle against Darth Sidious. Unlike most Jedi, who struggled against the Sith Lord's speed and ferocity, Mace Windu was able to not only withstand Sidious's assault, but actually defeat him in combat. This moment alone places him amongst the most powerful Jedi ever. Then there was Shatterpoint, another extremely rare ability that allowed the revered Jedi Master to see where people or situations broke, detecting and pinpointing any weaknesses. Beyond his combat skills, Mace was also an exceptional strategist and leader during the Clone Wars, making decisive battlefield choices that turned the tide of war. Despite his power and willingness to toy with the dark side of the Force, Mace remained committed to the Jedi Code, even when it put him at odds with the Republic's politics. His strength, discipline, and ability to wield both light and darkness without succumbing to corruption made him one of the most powerful Jedi to ever live. Number 3, Anakin Skywalker. Some of you are going to rush to the comments and say this is too low. Believe me, I know, but let me explain. Anakin Skywalker really is a case of what could have been. Had he not had his limbs severed, or turned to the dark side for that matter, there's no doubt in my mind he'd be at least number 2. After all, Anakin was the chosen one, a Jedi prophecy foretold that he would bring balance to the Force, which he did in the end, in a roundabout kind of way. Starting his training at the age of 9, Anakin had strong and natural Force abilities that made him a fantastic pilot, duelist, and tactician, with a midichlorian count that was off the charts. His unorthodox approach to many situations would often rile the Jedi Council, even sometimes defying their orders entirely. But Anakin always got the job done. That included on Mortis, when he was able to control both the son and daughter at the same time, something no other Force user could accomplish. He was the most accomplished general in the Clone Wars, the face of the Republic's war effort, all the while shaping Ahsoka Tano into the warrior she would become. Anakin went toe-to-toe with several worthy opponents, but most impressively defeated Count Dooku, making him the first Jedi to kill a Sith Lord in a millennia, since Maul survived his duel with Obi-Wan on Naboo. But it was his attachments to those he cared about, including his mother and Padme, that sent him down a path to the dark side of the Force. He betrayed the Jedi and became a Sith himself, Darth Vader. For decades, Vader terrorized the galaxy as the Empire ruled over it. It wasn't until Anakin's son became a Jedi that he started to turn back towards the light. In the end, it was his love for his son and his inherent goodness within that caused Vader to turn on Darth Sidious and once more become Anakin Skywalker. In death, Anakin regained his own consciousness, watching over and even helping to train not only Luke Skywalker, but also Leia, and even his own former apprentice, Ahsoka Tano. Anakin, as the Chosen One, had destroyed the Sith, brought the Force back into balance, and even in death continued to wield massive power and influence within the Force. Number 2, Yoda. As one of the oldest, wisest, and most experienced of Jedi in the Order, this tiny little guy is the true definition of what a Jedi Master should be. Despite his small size, he became the Grand Master of the entire Jedi Order, effectively being the leader of all of the other Jedi. He was someone who many other Jedi looked up to, often seeking out his wise and sage advice. For 800 years, he trained countless students and forged an unimaginably strong connection with the Force. That's not to say that Yoda was no good at fighting. He helped train Jedi younglings in lightsaber combat from a very young age, and he was extremely proficient with his own laser sword. In fact, in lightsaber duels, Yoda was nimble, fast, precise, and dangerous. He went toe-to-toe with both Darth Tyrannus and then Darth Sidious, managing to survive where many other Jedi would have been defeated or even killed. Yoda was even one of few to master all 7 classic forms of lightsaber combat. But when Sidious executed Order 66, Yoda went into exile, squirreling himself away on Dagobah to meditate, reflect, train with Qui-Gon Jinn to eventually become a Force ghost, and wait until a time when A New Hope would rise, one that would help bring balance to the Force once more and mark the true return of the Jedi. Number 1, Luke Skywalker. We aren't going to argue with George Lucas himself when it comes to the strongest character, even if the canon version of Luke pales in comparison to his Legends counterpart. Side note, let us know in the comments if you want a Legends version of this video. As the son of the Chosen One, Luke Skywalker didn't tap into his Force abilities until his late teens, a lifetime beyond when a normal Jedi Padawan would begin their training. Still, his natural talents soon shone through, and both Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda were impressed with the skills he possessed. But despite that, Luke had his father's dark streak within him, often giving in to his impulses and darker thoughts. Ultimately, though, Luke kept his feelings in check and managed to break through the seemingly impenetrable armor of Darth Vader, pleading with his father to come back to the light side of the Force. While Anakin at first resisted, he finally returned to the light in order to save his son, kill his master, and balance the Force. Luke went on to become a Jedi Grand Master, starting his own Jedi Academy and collecting ancient Jedi texts and relics. Though we've barely seen this character on screen, most notably in The Mandalorian Season 2, we are of the opinion that a 5-year post-Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker is the tip-top in terms of power. Honestly, he's just entering his prime at this point. But after a misunderstanding turned his nephew, Ben Solo, to the dark side, Luke hid himself away for many years, shutting himself off from the Force. It was only when things became incredibly dire that Luke stepped back up to be the Jedi that he was supposed to be. Despite feeling like he had failed those who he loved, Luke returned and sacrificed himself in order to save the Resistance and reignite the spark of hope for the galaxy. Even if you don't love the way he died in The Last Jedi, this was still another example of Luke demonstrating incredible power, performing a Force projection from across the galaxy. No other Jedi could have done this. Jedi were known as the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, but not all Jedi fit that mold or adhered to the ideals of the Order. This didn't necessarily mean they weren't powerful and capable of doing great things, but these Jedi didn't adhere to what it meant to be a true good Jedi. Some made catastrophic errors in judgment, others fell to the dark side, and a few were simply unfit to be Jedi at all. These are the 10 worst Jedi in all of Star Wars. Number 10, Coleman Trebor. This dinosaur-looking master was a powerful and wise Jedi of the Verk species. He had a seat on the Jedi Council and was a valued member, but what made Coleman one of the worst Jedi was his own confidence in himself. During the first battle of Geonosis, he jumped into the observation box to confront Dooku, arrest the Sith apprentice, and maybe even duel him if he had to. But what Coleman didn't take into account was that Dooku would be guarded and that the bounty hunter who protected him was one of the most dangerous and ruthless killers in the entire galaxy. Coleman landed only a few meters away from Dooku, drawing his green lightsaber, ready to arrest the Count and end the war before it even started. But before Dooku had even had a chance to reach for his own weapon, Jango Fett's blasters blazed into life, shooting Master Trebor multiple times before the Jedi stumbled and fell from the balcony to his death. Despite his undeniable bravery and willingness to do good, Coleman Trebor became one of the first Jedi casualties of the entire Clone Wars due to his lack of foresight and plain stupidity. Number 9, Mace Windu. This human Jedi was one of the highest-ranking members of the Jedi Council, and as such, he held the title of Master of the Order in the years leading up to the start of the Clone Wars. Mace was a competent and extremely powerful Jedi that even managed to best Darth Sidious in a lightsaber duel. Yet, despite this, he was also one of the worst Jedi. Firstly, Mace was an arrogant man. He was powerful and he knew it. He wielded influence and sat in a position of authority over other Jedi. And while he never used his power and influence for anything bad, he still liked the ego boost that such a position brought him. It was precisely Mace's arrogance and self-confidence that Yoda saw spreading throughout many of the Jedi in the Order. Secondly, Mace's attitude towards Anakin was one of the factors that pushed Skywalker towards the dark side of the Force and ultimately into becoming Darth Vader. It was clear that Mace didn't particularly like or trust the supposed Chosen One from the moment that Qui-Gon Jinn presented the young boy to him. And even throughout the years of training, Mace never truly warmed to Anakin. If he had been more open, friendly, and accepting with Skywalker, then perhaps the fall of the Order and the revenge of the Sith would never have taken place. This combination of arrogance and an untrusting nature is what makes Mace Windu one of the worst Jedi that other Jedi should have tried to strive not to be. Number 8. Luminara Unduli. What makes this Myralian such a bad Jedi is that she is such a good Jedi. It's almost paradoxical. Luminara is capable of extreme emotional detachment and unfailing trust in the Republic, which, while admirable qualities in a Jedi, are the things that are her undoing. When her Padawan Barriss Offee was trapped under the rubble of a destroyed Geonosis droid factory, Luminara gave up instantly, showing little care or connection. Even rigid Jedi such as Obi-Wan Kenobi would have shown more emotion and attachment during such a traumatic occasion. Worse still, Luminara failed to see Barriss's fall to the dark side coming, highlighting her lack of awareness, but we'll get to Barriss later. Then there's her implied yet unconfirmed connection to the Martez sisters in the Clone Wars Season 7, allowing their parents to die and offering little condolences in the form of, "The Force will be with you." Luminara's unwavering loyalty to the flawed Jedi Code blinded her to the bigger picture. Even in death, she was used as bait by the Empire, symbolizing her insignificance. It was the fact that Luminara embodied the Jedi Order's flaws without questioning them that made her such a good, yet bad, Jedi. Number 7. Ki-Adi-Mundi. This conehead was present when a small group of Jedi, headed by Master Vernestra Rwoh, found out about the dark side user known as Kynir, or the Stranger. He witnessed this warrior using dark side powers and wielding a red lightsaber, yet refused to believe that the Sith were once again a threat to the galaxy. In fact, decades later, when Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi reported their encounter with Darth Maul, Ki-Adi failed to even mention the original incident. Had Ki-Adi brought the Chimere incident to the attention of the Jedi Council when he was given a seat on it, perhaps they would have been more prepared to deal with the re-emergence of the Sith. With that prior knowledge, the Council would have been on much higher alert, and Darth Sidious may never have found the opportunity to rise to power, destroy the Jedi Order, and take over the entire galaxy. Mundi also didn't think Count Dooku was the one behind Padme Amidala's assassination attempts in Attack of the Clones, calling him a political idealist, not a murderer. He was one of the Jedi against Anakin Skywalker being trained, and was one of the hardest accusers of Ahsoka Tano when she was framed for the Jedi Temple's bombing. Then there's the time he ordered the use of flamethrowers against the Geonosians. It's no wonder he's one of the most hated Jedi in the fandom. It's his failure to believe facts, not accept the blatant truth, and deny and conceal clear evidence that makes Ki-Adi-Mundi a pretty bad Jedi. Number 6. Nadar Veb. In a similar way to Mace Windu, Nadar Veb is considered a bad Jedi due to his arrogance, but it was more than just that. He was also impatient and emotionally unstable. Promoted too quickly during the Clone Wars, he lacked the wisdom and restraint needed for knighthood. He openly challenged his former master, Kit Fisto, and rushed into battle with General Grievous, ignoring caution and strategy. Not a great idea when your opponent is a known Jedi killer. Driven by pride and a desire for glory, Nadar embodied the Jedi Order's shift from peacekeepers to soldiers. He saw his master as more of a hindrance than a help, and paid the consequences for that. His recklessness led to his death in a trap that he could have easily avoided. Nadar's downfall highlights both his personal failures and the broader flaws in the Jedi's wartime decisions and declining philosophy. Number 5. Anakin Skywalker. Despite his immense power and potential, Anakin was ultimately a bad Jedi because he consistently failed to embody the core principles of what it was to be a Jedi. From the start, he struggled with attachment, especially to his mother and later to Padme Amidala, which led to fear, anger, and possessiveness. Rather than confronting these emotions through the Jedi path, he suppressed them until they consumed him and made him an easy target for Darth Sidious. Anakin was impulsive, defiant, and often ignored the Jedi Council's guidance. Believing his strength gave him the right to act independently. His arrogance and need for control made him easy to manipulate, especially by Palpatine, who fueled his fears and doubts. Instead of seeking balance, Anakin sought power to prevent loss, which directly contradicted Jedi teachings. Even his master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, struggled to keep Anakin on the straight and narrow. Skywalker's inability to let go, combined with his growing resentment toward the Jedi Order, ultimately led to his transformation into Darth Vader. Though heroic at times, Anakin never truly embraced what it meant to be a Jedi. Had Qui-Gon Jinn not died at the hands of Darth Maul and been able to train Anakin, his story would have certainly gone differently. Number 4. Osha Anasaia. First discovered by Jedi Master Sol on the planet of Brendok, Osha and her twin sister May were both part of a witch clan. But it was their natural strength in the Force that drew a small party of Jedi to them. Osha and her sister were virgins in the Force, conceived through a combination of witch magic and Force intervention. Osha was eventually taken and trained in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, though she abandoned the order in her teens, walking away from her master and the Force. Years later, Sol sought her out to help track down May, whom she believed to be dead, as she had been killing Jedi. While Osha wasn't willing to help at first, she eventually did. However, she quickly learned that her master had left May for dead on Brendok when they were just children. This shocking truth pushed Osha towards the dark side, and instead of helping, she instead joined forces with a Sith acolyte known only as the Stranger. Osha's abandonment of the Jedi not once, but twice, and her quickness and eagerness to join the dark side are what make her a bad Jedi with a regrettable past. Number 3. The Grand Inquisitor. This Powin was a bad Jedi long before his fall, and he was filled with arrogance, judgment, and a lack of compassion before the dark side took him. As a Jedi Temple guard, he rigidly enforced rules without empathy, showing disdain for others in the Order. He harbored resentment toward the Council and coveted forbidden knowledge in the Jedi archives, reflecting a growing obsession with power. Rather than embracing Jedi ideals of humility and understanding, he grew disillusioned and bitter. His faith in the Jedi crumbled over time, making him easy prey for the dark side. He, like many of the other early Inquisitors, was a terrible Jedi because his fall to the dark side was almost destined, and one of the easiest tasks for Darth Sidious during his rise to power. Number 2. Barriss Offee. Barriss was a bad Jedi not because she lacked skill or intelligence, but because she completely lost faith in the Jedi Order and responded with violence. Disillusioned by the Jedi's role in the Clone Wars, she realized they had become corrupt and hypocritical. However, instead of confronting the Council or seeking a peaceful path to make a positive change, she bombed the Jedi Temple, killing innocent people. Her actions directly contradicted Jedi values of peace, compassion, and justice. Worse, Barriss not only let down her unsuspecting master, Luminara Unduli, but she also framed her close friend, Ahsoka Tano, allowing her to be exiled and nearly killed. Though Barriss was right to be concerned about the Order's decline, her betrayal and resort to terrorism made her fall worse. Barriss became the very thing she claimed to hate, eventually joining the Inquisitorius and showing how bad of a Jedi she had become, and how far she had strayed from her order's true ideals. Number 1. Pong Krell. Obviously, there's a reason why the Pong Krell subreddit exists. Pong Krell was a bad Jedi because he completely abandoned the Jedi Code in favor of ambition, cruelty, and betrayal. During the Clone Wars, he commanded with brutality, showing no respect for the lives of clone troopers under his leadership. His tactics were needlessly aggressive and resulted in high casualties, revealing a disturbing disregard for life. Secretly, Krell had fallen to the dark side, believing the Jedi were doomed and that aligning with the future Sith Empire would grant him power. He manipulated his own soldiers into fighting each other, staging a deadly battle that turned into a friendly fire massacre. Had he not been killed by his troopers, Krell would more than likely have become Darth Sidious's target to become the Grand Inquisitor. Still, Krell's arrogance, lust for power, and willingness to sacrifice innocence for personal gain made him not just a bad Jedi, but a monstrous traitor to everything the Order stood for. So, there you have it, our picks for the 10 worst Jedi in the Order. The Jedi Order was massive in numbers at its peak. Around the time of the Clone Wars, there were estimated to be around 10,000, and as such, the Jedi Order was incredibly diverse. While some species like humans, Twi'leks, and Keldors were a common sight, there are a number of species that rarely, if ever, had members inducted into the Order. Strap in, because this video is about to get pretty weird. These are the 10 rarest Jedi species in all of Star Wars. The Tusken Raiders of Tatooine were a nomadic native species, known by many to be hostile towards outsiders. When you think of the Sand People, you're probably more likely to think of a savage beast than a Jedi Master. Meet Sharad Het, a powerful human Jedi Knight who served prior to the Phantom Menace. A heroic and legendary figure in the pre-Clone Wars Galactic Republic, he was well known throughout the ranks of the Jedi Order. Het eventually grew weary of his fame, and after a disaster that destroyed his homeworld and killed his family, exiled himself to Tatooine, where he became the warlord of a tribe of Tusken Raiders. There he had a son named Asharad, and continued to lead the Tuskens until the Jedi sent a representative to retrieve him, Ki-Adi-Mundi. During a war between the Tuskens and the Hutts of Tatooine, Aurra Sing killed Sharad Het. Honoring the Jedi's final wish, Ki-Adi-Mundi took his son back to Coruscant as his Padawan. During the Clone Wars, he served the Republic as a general and established himself as a charismatic leader who often led his troops from the front lines, also becoming good friends with a young Anakin Skywalker. Asharad was able to escape the Great Jedi Purge and returned to Tatooine, where he encountered and dueled Obi-Wan Kenobi. Eventually, Asharad would fall to the dark side and became the infamous Sith Lord Darth Krayt, becoming the leader of the One Sith. So we all know that there was a Tusken Raider Jedi, but what about their fellow Tatooine natives, the Jawas? Yes, there was. Akil was a male Jawa who ascended to the rank of Jedi Knight during the Clone Wars. He trained as a Jedi Consular, specializing in studying the great mysteries of the Force. At one point in time, Akil traveled with a Keldor Jedi Guardian named Dibs, the two charged with finding recruits for the Jedi Academy on the planet Almus. There they also debated the threat of a Sith cult known as the Believers. Akil was also known to dislike when others used the common Jawanese word Utini when speaking to him, wrinkling his face whenever it happened. So make sure you drop an Utini in the comments. The Tals were a furry, four-eyed primitive species that were native to the frozen planets Alzok 3 and Orto Plutonia. Tals were rarely seen in the galaxy away from these worlds. However, one Tals named Fulmudama was discovered to be Force-sensitive near birth and was taken to the Jedi Temple. He managed to adapt to life at the Jedi Temple, growing strong in the Force and crafting a blue lightsaber on his way to achieving the rank of Jedi Master. Serving as a general within the Grand Army of the Republic during the Clone Wars, Master Mudama was stationed on Coruscant when General Grievous launched a surprise assault on the Republic's capital. At the orders of Yoda, Mudama joined fellow knights Roran Korob, Binku Trilla, and Roth Del Masana in heading to the bunker that was to protect Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. There they met Jedi Masters Shaak Ti and Stas Ali, who guarded the entrance. Soon, the Jedi engaged General Grievous and his Magna Guards in combat, and Mudama was slain by the legendary cyborg Jedi Killer, his lightsaber becoming one of many in Grievous's collection. There was only one Kaminoan to ever be inducted into the Jedi Order, and no, it wasn't Yarael Poof from The Phantom Menace. He was a Quirmian, and specifically did not appear in Attack of the Clones to avoid confusion with the Kaminoans. Kina Ha was a Kaminoan who lived for over 3,000 years and had been genetically altered to survive long hyperspace journeys, but unfortunately these missions were never carried out, and she was left without purpose on her highly organized planet. Eventually, a force sensitivity began to show itself, and Ha fled Kamino in fear of her perfectionist peers. Soon the Kaminoan came under the tutelage of a Jedi Master, traveling the galaxy for a century. That is, until Ha experienced a terrifying vision from the Force, where she saw countless soldiers of the dark side emerging from her home world. Returning to Kamino in a rush, Ha found no unusual presences on the water world, and certainly no dark side army. However, wishing to prevent the vision from coming true, she remained on the planet. Over the coming decades, Kamino produced many clone armies, though she was unable to determine which clone army was the one she foresaw. When the Grand Army of the Republic was commissioned, she had no idea that the Sith had infiltrated it and intended to use it to wipe out the Jedi. When Order 66 was eventually issued, Kina Ha fled Kamino and went into hiding on Mandalore along with the Mandalorian Kal Skirata and several clones who had disobeyed the Order. At this point, we've seen several Wookiee Jedi in various Star Wars stories, including Gungi, Kelnaka, Tyvaka, Buryaga Agaburi, and Arkoff. Still, Wookiee Jedi were considered rare, but what about their planetary neighbors on Trandosha, the Trandoshans? For those unaware, these two species had a very uneasy relationship. To put things lightly, Skier was a male Trandoshan Jedi Master during the High Republic era. He took Keeve Trennis as his Padawan and served on the Starlight Beacon space station, a hub for the Jedi Order designed to unite and protect as the Outer Rim was difficult to navigate during this time. In a combat with the Marauders known as the Nihil, Master Skier lost both his own left arm and one of his friends, an event that caused the Trandoshan to gradually lose his connection to the Force. This was only worsened by a Trandoshan condition called Magrok syndrome, which caused Trandoshans to revert to their more primal instincts of rage. Discovered by the Jedi Order before 400 BBY, records indicate that Beldorian was the only known Hutt to ever enter the Jedi Order. Reaching the rank of Jedi Knight and taking on missions from the Jedi High Council, Beldorian was dispatched to the planet Nam Chiros. While on the planet, the Hutt Jedi fell to the lure of the dark side of the Force, abandoning the Jedi Order. Beldorian established himself as the ruler of the world, forcing his subjects to call him Beldorian of the Ruby Eyes and Beldorian the Splendid. Due to a Hutt's long lifespan and his abandonment of the Order, Beldorian was never hunted during the Great Jedi Purge. In fact, he survived into the time of Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order and was eventually killed in a duel by the greatest Hutt Slayer of them all, Leia Organa Solo. The Ugor is without a doubt one of the strangest species in Star Wars canon, essentially slime-like blobs that could shapeshift. Often they wore biosuits to appear as humanoids. One Ugor named Orbalin was the only member of his species to join the Jedi Order, reaching the rank of Jedi Master and serving as an archivist during the High Republic era, stationed aboard the Starlight Beacon space station. Because of his formless body, Orbalin survived a blaster shot through the dome of his biosuit, and he was even able to duplicate himself. Pretty weird, right? This Jedi might take the cake as the weirdest in all of Star Wars. Is that a cat? A bunny? Eevee from Pokemon? Apparently not. Ikrit was a male Kushaban from the world of Kushaba, who was trained as a Jedi by none other than Yoda and reached the rank of Master. During his Jedi career, he discovered a Massassi temple on Yavin 4, which trapped the souls of many children. After failing to free them, he went into a self-imposed exile until the person that could free them came to the temple. His hibernation trance lasted centuries, avoiding 400 years of galactic events, including the Clone Wars and Order 66. During his very lengthy exile on Yavin 4, he met a young Anakin Solo, who originally believed him to be just a pet, but the two worked together to free the children. Soon, Ikrit revealed himself to the new Jedi Order and sacrificed himself during the Yuuzhan Vong War. Though most Ewoks lacked the mental capacity to harness and utilize the power of the Force, there was one unnamed Ewok Jedi active after Return of the Jedi. That Ewok Jedi once attacked a group of Sanyasins who tried to enslave a fellow Ewok, wielding a blue-bladed lightsaber and wearing matching Jedi garments. But that's about all we know about his story, due to his only appearance being in the Geonosis and the Outer Rim Worlds role-playing game sourcebook. The Ugnaughts were considered by many to be the hardest working species in the entire galaxy, but there was one Ugnaught known to have joined the Jedi Order, reaching the rank of Master. His name was Tree Tower, and during the Clone Wars, he discovered a group of fellow Ugnaughts that were captured and destined to be slaves in Trade Federation droid factories. Attempting to rescue them, Tree Tower was attacked by spider droids, triggering a distress signal before he was knocked from a platform unconscious. The clone commandos of Hope Squad came to his rescue, though 3 out of 4 of the clones would be killed by droid fire. Despite this, the squad's leader was able to rescue Tree Tower, and the two completed the mission. The Jedi are the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, but even the brightest lights can cast the darkest shadows. Throughout galactic history, some of the most powerful Jedi have fallen from grace, consumed by the power they swore to resist. This is every single Jedi who fell to the dark side in canon. Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side is the most infamous in Star Wars history, and for good reason. Once a Jedi Knight, hailed as the Chosen One, destined to bring balance to the Force, his journey was marked by extraordinary promise and devastating tragedy. Plagued by fear of loss and a crippling attachment to those he loved, Anakin's vulnerability made him the perfect target for Darth Sidious. Manipulated into believing the Jedi Order was corrupt and seduced by the promise of saving Padme Amidala from death, he succumbed to the dark side, becoming Darth Vader. Anakin's betrayal culminated in the massacre at the Jedi Temple during Order 66, where he slaughtered Jedi, including younglings. This horrifying act cemented his transformation into a Sith Lord. As Vader, he became the Emperor's enforcer, hunting down Jedi survivors and spreading fear across the galaxy. Yet, even at his darkest, traces of Anakin remained. His eventual redemption, through the love of his son, Luke Skywalker, brought his story full circle, fulfilling his destiny as the Chosen One by destroying the Sith and saving the galaxy from Palpatine's tyranny. Taron Malicos was a Jedi general during the Clone Wars, known for his tactical brilliance and formidable connection to the Force. However, his story took a dark turn after Order 66. Fleeing the Empire, Malicos crash-landed on the treacherous planet Dathomir, a world steeped in dark-side energy. Stranded and surrounded by the remnants of the Night Sisters' destruction, Malicos succumbed to the planet's corrupting influence. Seeking power to survive, he embraced the dark side and began studying forbidden knowledge left behind by the Night Sisters. Over time, he transformed into a rogue Force user, abandoning the Jedi way entirely. Malicos sought to manipulate the Night Sister Merrin, attempting to form an alliance to restore Dathomir's former glory under his rule. However, his ambition brought him into conflict with Cal Kestis, a young Jedi survivor. The two clashed in a fierce duel on Dathomir, where Malicos revealed his mastery of dual red lightsabers and the dark side's raw power. Ultimately, Merrin aided Cal in defeating Malicos, imprisoning him in the depths of Dathomir. Quinlan Vos was a Jedi Knight known for his unorthodox methods and unique ability to sense memories through touch, a gift known as psychometry. Despite his skill and bravery, Vos's journey to the dark side began during a high-stakes mission to assassinate Count Dooku during the Clone Wars. Partnering with the former Sith assassin Asajj Ventress, Vos initially sought to infiltrate Dooku's inner circle. However, his growing connection with Ventress led to a romantic bond that conflicted with the Jedi Order's teachings. In his pursuit of Dooku, Vos succumbed to the dark side, driven by a desire for revenge and the belief that he could end the war by embracing the darkness. Vos served under Dooku for a time. However, Ventress's ultimate sacrifice to save Vos from Dooku's influence became the turning point in his redemption. Shattered by her death, Vos returned to the Jedi Order, where he faced the consequences of his fall. Count Dooku, once a revered Jedi Master, became one of the most powerful Sith Lords in galactic history. Born into nobility on the planet Sereno, Dooku was a prodigy within the Jedi Order, known for his skill in lightsaber combat and his strong philosophical convictions. However, his growing disillusionment with the Jedi and the Republic led him down a darker path. Dooku's fall began with his rejection of the Jedi Council's growing political involvement and the corruption he saw within the Republic. He believed that the Jedi had become tools of a broken system, and ultimately left the Order in search of a greater cause. It was during his self-imposed exile that he encountered Darth Sidious, who seduced him to the dark side, promising him the power to bring order to the galaxy. As Darth Tyrannus, Dooku became a key figure in the Separatist alliance. His exceptional charisma, leadership, and combat prowess made him a formidable foe for the Jedi. Yet, despite his power, Dooku remained somewhat conflicted, haunted by his role in the galaxy's suffering. Ultimately, Dooku's downfall came when his own master, Sidious, betrayed him. Dooku's death at the hands of Anakin Skywalker marked the end of his tragic journey from a once great Jedi to a Sith Lord consumed by his desire for control. Asajj Ventress was a complex and tragic figure who walked the line between light and dark throughout her life. Born a Night Sister on Dathomir, she was taken as a child and enslaved. Rescued by Jedi Knight Kai Narek, she was trained as his Padawan. However, Ventress's Jedi path was cut short when Narek was killed in battle. Overwhelmed by grief and anger, she embraced the dark side, catching the attention of Count Dooku. Dooku trained her as his Sith apprentice, turning her into a deadly assassin and his primary enforcer during the Clone Wars. As a servant of the Sith, Ventress led countless missions, including brutal confrontations with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. Despite her power, Ventress was ultimately betrayed by Dooku under orders from Darth Sidious, who viewed her growing strength as a threat. This betrayal pushed her back toward her Night Sister roots. She sought revenge against Dooku with the help of her clan, only to witness the Night Sisters' near extinction at the hands of General Grievous. Ventress's journey took yet another turn when she became a bounty hunter, striking an uneasy alliance with Quinlan Vos during his mission to assassinate Dooku. The two fell in love, and her selflessness in saving Vos ultimately led to her death at Dooku's hands. Or so we thought, as she re-emerged during The Bad Batch Season 3. Pong Krell was a Jedi General during the Clone Wars, known for his tactical brilliance but also for his harsh and often cruel leadership style. A basilisk with 4 arms and a unique double-bladed lightsaber for each pair, Krell was a formidable warrior who commanded respect and fear from his clone troopers. Stationed on Umbara during a critical campaign, Krell took command of the 501st Legion when Anakin Skywalker was called away. Under his leadership, the clones were subjected to grueling and reckless strategies, resulting in heavy casualties. Krell's disregard for the lives of his troops led to growing resentment and suspicion among the ranks. It was later discovered that Krell had fallen to the dark side, hoping to prove his worth to Count Dooku and earn a place as a Sith apprentice. His ultimate betrayal came when he manipulated the clones into fighting each other. Krell's actions were eventually uncovered, and the clones turned against him. In a final confrontation, he was captured and executed by Captain Rex's men, ending his short-lived but devastating betrayal. Dagan Gera was a Jedi Knight during the High Republic era, known for his idealism and devotion to the Force. Stationed at the Kobo Jedi Temple, Gera worked alongside Jedi Master Centauri Kree to explore and protect the vast frontier worlds of the galaxy. However, his fall to the dark side stemmed from a deep sense of betrayal and frustration with the Jedi Order. Gera believed the Jedi had forsaken their duty to the Outer Rim, abandoning these distant territories to chaos and neglect. Consumed by his vision, Gera turned to the dark side, embracing his anger and disillusionment. This led to a conflict with Master Kree, who ultimately defeated him and imprisoned him in a Bacta tank within the Kobo Jedi Temple, ensuring he could no longer pose a threat. Centuries later, Gera was awakened by Cal Kestis. Unleashed into a galaxy much changed, Gera sought to revive his dark ambitions, leading to a climactic confrontation with Kestis. Despite his skill with the lightsaber and the dark side, Gera was ultimately defeated, ending his misguided quest for power. Bode Akuna was a Jedi Knight during the Clone Wars, known for his resourcefulness and unyielding commitment to protecting his loved ones. However, his fall to the dark side came not from ambition or corruption, but from desperation and personal tragedy. During the final days of the Clone Wars, Bode witnessed the horrors of Order 66 firsthand, losing his wife to Imperial forces. Determined to protect his daughter, Kata, at any cost, Bode abandoned the Jedi Code and went into hiding. He struck a deal with the Empire, offering his services as an operative in exchange for ensuring Kata's safety. Bode became a Force-sensitive mercenary, using his Jedi training to serve the Empire while keeping his daughter's existence a secret. His double life came to light when he encountered Cal Kestis, initially appearing as an ally in Cal's quest to protect the hidden Tanalorr system. Bode's true motives were revealed when his fear and obsession drove him to betray Cal and the Hidden Path. Embracing the dark side, Bode sought to claim Tanalorr as a sanctuary for himself and Kata, seeing it as the only way to guarantee her safety. His actions forced a devastating confrontation with Cal, who ultimately defeated him. Revan, one of the most legendary figures in Star Wars lore, was officially reintroduced into canon through the Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary, which referenced the Revan Legion of the Sith Eternal Troopers as a homage to the ancient Sith Lord. Though his story remains largely unexplored in canon, his journey in Star Wars Legends offers a fascinating tale of heroism, betrayal, and redemption. Once a celebrated Jedi Knight, Revan became a war hero during the Mandalorian Wars, leading the Republic to victory. However, his exposure to dark side artifacts and Sith teachings during the war gradually corrupted him. Alongside his apprentice and close ally Malak, Revan fell to the dark side and declared himself a Sith Lord, seeking to conquer the galaxy to bring what he viewed as order and stability. As Darth Revan, he amassed a massive Sith empire and waged war against the Republic. However, his reign was cut short when the Jedi Order captured him and erased his memory. Reprogrammed as a Jedi once more, Revan ultimately turned against the dark side, defeating his former apprentice Malak and dismantling the empire he helped build. Ben Solo, the son of Leia Organa and Han Solo, was a promising Jedi Padawan and heir to a legendary lineage. Trained by his uncle Luke Skywalker, Ben was strong in the Force, carrying the potential of his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker. However, his path was marred by fear, manipulation, and the weight of expectation. Ben's fall began with Supreme Leader Snoke, a puppet of Emperor Palpatine who preyed on Ben's insecurities and anger. Snoke whispered promises of power and freedom, exploiting Ben's fear of not living up to his family's legacy. The breaking point came when Ben discovered Luke standing over him with a lightsaber. misinterpreting his uncle's fleeting moment of doubt as a betrayal. Believing the Jedi intended to kill him, Ben destroyed Luke's Jedi Temple, killing several students and turning others to his cause. Renouncing his name, Ben became Kylo Ren, the leader of the Knights of Ren and enforcer of the First Order. As Kylo, he sought to extinguish the past, including his parents, Leia and Han. His struggle between the light and dark sides became a central theme of his journey, culminating in his eventual redemption through Rey's influence and Leia's final act of love. The Stranger was a human male Sith Lord active during the High Republic era. Initially, he served as a Padawan under Jedi Master Vernestra Rwoh, but was eventually expelled from the Jedi Order. After his expulsion, he was trained in the dark side by Darth Plagueis. To conceal his true identity, he assumed the alias Chimere, posing as a former smuggler turned traitor. In this guise, he sought an apprentice to further his Sith ambitions. He found a potential acolyte in May Anaseya, a Force-sensitive individual harboring resentment toward the Jedi Order. As her master, the Stranger never revealed his face, maintaining an aura of mystery and manipulation. Under his tutelage, May became an adept assassin, undertaking missions against Jedi targets. The Stranger's methods were harsh, emphasizing the destruction of Jedi ideals over mere physical confrontation. His ultimate goal was to challenge the existing Sith hierarchy, adhering to the Rule of Two by seeking to overthrow his own master. Radaki became a part of what was later known as the Lost 20, and was seduced by the dark side of the Force as a result of his belief that the Jedi should retain their family ties and wealth. Having forsaken his allegiance to the Order, he adopted the name Darth Krall and became a powerful Sith Lord. Finally, we'll give an honorable mention to every member of the Imperial Inquisitorius, all of whom were fallen Jedi. We recently made a dedicated video about them, which you can click the link to on your screen right now.
The Jedi Order, the guardians of peace and justice in the Galactic Republic, and perhaps the most well-known group in the galaxy to swing a lightsaber and wield the Force. Though commonly referred to under the bubble term Jedi Knights, there were several different Jedi ranks, both within the Order and the Grand Army of the Republic. On top of this, there were numerous specializations many Jedi fell under. Today, we'll be covering them all from the time period of the Clone Wars. This is every single Jedi rank and specialization explained. Jedi Initiates, also called Younglings or Jedi Hopefuls, were the youngest members of the Order. Recruited from worlds throughout the galaxy and tested for a midichlorian count, Initiates were removed from their families and brought to a Jedi Academy, such as the one at the Temple on Coruscant, for formal training under more senior Jedi. An Initiate's education could take only a few years, or perhaps decades, depending on their species' lifespan and rate of maturity. One of the most important events during this training was a rite of passage called the Gathering, where younglings traveled to planets like Ilum to find and claim their lightsaber kyber crystals. Once their training was complete, younglings participated in the Initiate Trial, or the annual Jedi Tournament. This was a series of tests for the Initiate as a prerequisite to progressing, as well as an opportunity to demonstrate their aptitude in the Force to Jedi Knights and Masters who could choose them to become their Jedi Padawan or apprentice. Padawans were typically at adolescence and completed their training away from the academy, often in more dangerous situations like the battlefield. Per tradition, Padawans of a hair-growing species would wear a long braid of hair behind their ear. Hairless Padawans were encouraged to wear a type of jewelry, a tattoo, or other body modification. A Jedi Knight or Jedi Master could have only one apprentice at a time, and the Padawan had to be promoted to the rank of Jedi Knight before another apprentice could be chosen. After a period of time under their master, often nearing a decade, a Jedi Padawan was able to attempt the Jedi Trials. The trials were administered by the Jedi High Council to any Padawan they deemed worthy of becoming a Jedi. The Council could assign substitute tests or use an exceptionally trying mission in place of the traditional tests. If one failed the trials, they would be permitted to attempt again. The primary Jedi Trials were a set of 5, and were the Trial of Skill, consisting of physical, mental, and combat challenges, as well as numerous displays of lightsaber technique, judging the Padawan's ability to avoid distraction through self-discipline. During the Clone Wars, Anakin completed this trial when he defeated Asajj Ventress on Yavin 4. The trial of courage often involved demonstrating battlefield heroics or facing off with a Sith, oftentimes in a simulation when the dark side users were still in hiding. Obi-Wan Kenobi passed his trial of courage by defeating Darth Maul on Naboo. The trial of the flesh was the most trying test, involving the apprentice overcoming great physical pain, hardship, or loss, the test sometimes resulting in death or dismemberment. Anakin Skywalker's came when he lost his arm to Count Dooku on Geonosis. While this was out of recklessness, Obi-Wan convinced the Council to accept this as his trial of flesh. The trial of spirit required Padawans to look deep within their souls, on a quest for self-discovery. This test was designed to pit a potential Jedi Knight against their most dangerous enemy, the darkness within themselves. Often, apprentices did not like what they saw, and it could be a highly traumatic experience. Luke Skywalker completed this trial on Dagobah when he dueled briefly with Vader, his helmeted head blowing apart and revealing Luke's own face staring back at him. Finally, the trial of insight helped a Jedi to see what was really in front of their eyes through use of the Force. For example, a field of stones could be laid out on the trial's chamber floor, and a Padawan would be forced to locate a single grain of sand amongst it. If the Padawan was successful in completing the series of challenges, the master would then prepare their apprentice for the knighting ceremony, where their Padawan braid would be severed and they would rise a Jedi Knight. No longer attached to a master, knights were assigned missions from the Council and strove to find peace and maintain order within the Galactic Republic. They could also pursue a specialized training on one of the 3 branches of knighthood, which we'll get to, or take their own Jedi Padawan for one-on-one training. For many Jedi, this would be the highest position they'd achieve, making up the majority of the Order's members. Because of this, the public was familiar with this title more than any other, and thus, many addressed any Jedi as a Jedi Knight. An experienced knight who demonstrated great wisdom and understanding of the Force, often through training many Padawans to knighthood, could be elevated by the High Council to the rank of Jedi Master, reserved for those who had shown exceptional devotion and skill, as well as balance in the Force and often combat. The rank of Jedi Master also allowed one to access restricted holocron vaults of the Jedi Archives, which also housed Sith holocrons and artifacts. Anakin Skywalker wished to access these in order to prevent Padme's death, one of the reasons he was so upset after being refused the rank of Master. Other than a few exceptions, it was only Jedi Masters that could be one of 12 to serve as a Jedi High Council member, with each member appointed by unanimous vote of the current members. The 12 wise and powerful Jedi Masters were elected to guide the Order, as well as to serve as an advisory body for the office of the Supreme Chancellor. They met regularly within the council chambers at the Jedi Temple. The council was said to be made up of 5 lifetime members, 4 long-term members, and 3 limited-term members. As a whole, the Council would also elect one member to serve as Master of the Order, the leader of the Jedi High Council. Mace Windu held this title up to the Battle of Geonosis, stepping down in order to take a more active role in the Clone Wars. Yoda took up the title in Windu's absence, already holding the title of Jedi Grand Master, the recognized head of the entire Jedi Order. The rank of Grand Master was bestowed only upon a single Jedi, the Order's greatest and wisest of all masters. Now that we've covered the 7 main ranks, we'll touch on the Jedi military ranks in the Grand Army of the Republic before diving into other specializations. Jedi Commander was a rank often held by Jedi Padawans. They had the superiority to clone officers and often led regiments. Jedi General was the military rank held by Jedi Knights or Jedi Masters, as they led larger clone trooper units. However, there were a few even higher, lesser-mentioned Jedi military ranks. A senior Jedi General took command of one of 20 sector armies within the Grand Army of the Republic. High Jedi General was another step up, only achievable by Council members. They held command of one of 10 system armies within the galaxy, each consisting of two sector armies. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Shaq T, and Mace Windu were known to have held this rank. Now, on to the more unique ranks and specializations. Jedi Battle Master was the title for the premier lightsaber combat instructor of the Jedi Order's Jedi Academy. Appointed by the High Council, the Battle Master oversaw all lightsaber instruction at the Academy and was responsible for electing new instructors. Singe Relic held this position during the Clone Wars. Jedi Guardian was one of three main specializations for Jedi Knights, often wielding blue lightsabers. Jedi Guardians prefer to take an active stance against the dark side of the Force, brandishing their weapons proudly. Guardians focused most of their training on perfecting their sparring and athletic skills, as well as the art of unarmed combat. There were even a few subspecializations, including Aces, members of the Starfighter Corps who specialized and used their ship as an extension of their being, combining piloting skills with mastery of the Force. Lightsaber instructors determined to pass down their experience to the young students of the Order. Peacekeepers, working as an area's special police, helping government law enforcement to quell riots and capture terrorists. Weapon masters, who mastered the technique of wielding an exotic weapon. And finally, warrior masters, the most profound masters of the Jedi Guardian's ways. Jedi Consular was the second specialization, often wielding green lightsabers. They focused not on physical combat, but on mastery of the Force and the sharpening of mental skills. It too had many subcategories, including ambassadors, who worked closely with senators and even the chancellor to assist in greeting unaligned governments and helping them join the Republic. Diplomats, given the authority to hammer out a compromise or treaty during tense negotiations, backed by the full support of the Senate and Jedi Order. Healers, focusing on the more humanitarian aspects of the Force, manipulating the living Force to perform the art of healing. Lore Keepers, hey, that's me. In all seriousness, they contributed to the growth of the Jedi archives. Chief Librarian was the title given to the Lore Keeper who presided over the archives on Coruscant. Researchers chose specializations such as that in archaeology, geology, biology, mathematics, and astronomy to update the archives. Seers maintained and updated the Order's holocrons. The most perceptive of these Jedi were known as prophets and foretold the future of the galaxy. They were probably behind the prophecy of the Chosen One. Good job, guys! Sage Master was the final consular specialization, reserved for the most studied of masters. Sentinels were the third branch of Jedi, the rarest among the Order, often wielding the yellow lightsaber. They sought a balance between the intensive combat training of the Guardians and the wider philosophical views and teaching responsibilities of the consulars. They were generally employed in scouting missions and were skilled in security, computers, or stealth techniques, falling into subspecializations such as investigators, specifically appointed by the High Council to uncover hidden and obscure threats to the galaxy, such as powerful criminal syndicates, corruption, and conspiracy against the Republic. Recruiters owned the talents learned from Jedi investigators to track down and identify Force sensitives to assess whether they belonged in the Jedi Order. Shadows were the secret police of the Order, dispatched to destroy all agents of the dark side, and were responsible for erasing the word Sith from the minds of the majority of galactic citizens. Temple Guards were anonymous sentinels who served as a security force and reported to the Battle Master. They wore formal robes and identity-concealing masks, the ultimate expression of emotional detachment required in service to a higher calling, wielding double-bladed yellow lightsaber pikes. Watchmen oversaw a particular system or sector, often skilled in diplomacy and the area's culture. The Jedi Temple Security Force also contained other roles for Jedi other than the previously mentioned Temple Guards. The Gate Master was bestowed upon the Jedi Peacekeeper, tasked with guarding the four main entrances of the temple on Coruscant. Gate Master Jurok was the first Jedi killed by Anakin Skywalker during Operation Nightfall. Jedi snipers were stationed around the temple's perimeter. They excelled at using their lightsabers as ranged weapons and used the Force to enhance their vision as well as to help guide their long-range shots. Jedi Brutes were the temple's first line of defense from troublemakers, zealots, and rioters. The Jedi Service Corps fell under the jurisdiction of the Council of Reassignment. This council helped Jedi younglings and Padawans who failed their training to still fill roles for the Order. The Corps was made up of four branches: the Agricultural Corps, the Medical Corps, the Educational Corps, and the Exploration Corps. Caretaker of First Knowledge was a position held by the leader of the Council of First Knowledge. Composed of 5 Jedi, they oversaw the Temple Academy and its curriculum. But that's every single Jedi rank and specialization, at least at the time of the Clone Wars. Let us know if we missed out on any, which is your favorite, and which specialization would you choose to pursue as a Jedi Knight? Let us know in the comments.